Bang ding ding, trademark. He come out 6'7" tall. Bang ding ding, one is star. Bang dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding. This is a perfect day.
Woke up to the sound of the garbage truck again. Upstairs neighbor's toilet's leaking on my head. Cars broke down, I missed the bus, there runs a 10. I had a feeling this was a day to stay in bed. I finally left my pad right under Jumbo's cloud roof. A police officer pulled out his gun and said, I said, sir, you got the wrong guy. I guess it's just the perfect day. It's just the perfect day. Na, 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 na,
Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to another exciting episode of Eggs. I'm Ryan. He's Mike. We're back. Wanted to kind of kick off the first of the year. We started off strong with a couple great shows. By now, you should have heard Dr. Karen Hardy and Ryan Spear, both of which were great interviews for different reasons, and we're grateful to have had them to kick off 2020 strong. However, Mike and I thought it would be important or nice if we sat down for a minute and just sort of talked about sort of the state of the union, what's been going on, you know, where the show is presently after coming up on now our third year.
Has it really been 3 years?
Yeah, you know, we're 6 months out still, but I mean, our next milestone will be 3 years.
That's crazy.
And, you know, so the show's grown and evolved quite a bit from its early days for anybody who's stuck around long enough to remember those early days. And, you know, also we've got some exciting things in the works and future plans and direction for the show that we just kind of want to talk about a little bit. A big part of it, I think, is just trying to hold ourselves accountable a little bit, sort of let's air some of our dirty laundry or what it is we want to work on. And maybe we'll be a little more accountable to work on it. And so that's it.
So I think I'm doing great, and I don't need to work on anything. So
okay.
This is all Ryan just wanted to get.
Yeah, no, it really is. This is sort of a personal exercise in trying to work through a list because, you know, I think, you know, like anything, when we began the podcast, I mean, a big part of it was, I mean, I don't want to, it sounds yucky to say it this way, but I mean, it was kind of selfish, right? It was this idea of, oh, well, let's create something that allows us to create content.
That's 100% it. I had gone to school for recording arts and I hadn't used it at all.
Well, yeah. And like, you know, I work in marketing and advertising, and the big buzzword was, you know, content, you know, content is king. Let's just make content, you know, and admittedly in those early days, like not too much credence was paid to who might be listening to this. You know, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to, you know, improve the lives of people? Are we trying to do whatever? Like, you know, it was admittedly very, you know, self-centered. It was sort of this idea of, oh, well, we're experts in X. We're going to talk about it and share it. And for anybody who dares go back and listen to old episodes, we have been generous, I guess, or I don't know, maybe it's not generosity, but we've been something anyway, where we have left those original episodes up, the first 10 at least that I can think of, up to maybe our first guest. And if I remember right, that was Will Trurin was our first real call-in guest.
Yeah.
And
that changed everything. The whole dynamic of the show changed.
Yeah, that was
when we had
a huge
guest.
pivot for the show. And that was the thing. But up to that point, you know, and we had done some cool things. We were proud of ourselves for being consistent through 10 episodes. But those early episodes were basically Mike and I would, you know, study up on some subject, make some bulleted list, write an article, whatever, and then just basically regurgitate back to the crowd, you know, with maybe a little bit of added commentary or whatever. But, you know, we're still trying to get our sea legs. You know, neither of us come from necessarily a broadcast background, while Mike has actually done radio and things in the past.
But it was a short stint, and I was literally the weather guy, just reading the weather every morning.
And I had done even less than that. And so for me, you know, I think that was a good place to start. But like we mentioned, when we hit Will's episode, you know, and I don't have it in front of me, but I want to say it's around episode 10 or somewhere in there. That was our first guest, and it was the first time we had sort of a third wheel or a third voice in the room, or in that case,
Someone else
virtually.
we could put blame on.
Yeah, right.
That's really all it was.
And so, but what happened, or what we noticed, is that our dynamic got immediately better. Instead of us reading something and just regurging, we were asking questions and responding to questions and sharing thoughts, and ideas were being spurred, and it was all this stuff. And immediately the show like leveled up. I think we went to another level then. And, even, as we proceeded from then, in this case, we've had more than 100 interviews since then, and, I think we've grown a lot. We've come a long way. We're much better in the, as broadcasters now than we were then, for sure. And I see growth in us and in the show, week to week still. So, I certainly don't think we've conquered the world or that we have it all figured out, but we definitely are making great progress. There are a lot of people who are starting to join in and join on, as is apparent by our numbers each week. There's always a little growth.
Yeah, thank you for that. We really appreciate it.
And across the breadth of the catalog, it's growth. It's not just the present episode, but it's as if, and this is the fiction I tell myself, but it's as if somebody discovers the show and then goes back and listens to a handful of episodes or something. And so, because it seems that with every new episode we drop, the whole catalog seems to lift. So that's very cool. And like Mike was sort of saying, or is alluding to, it's obviously not possible without the people who listen. So thanks very much. We appreciate you.
Pat yourself on the back. Now stop. That's all.
Just one pat.
One
That's
pat.
it. Lone pat. we don't have high enough numbers for you guys to keep patting.
Yeah.
So, but nonetheless, we've seen a lot of growth in the show. We've seen a lot of personal growth. Mike and I are sort of notorious schemers. We've always been up to one thing or another over the years. A few things together, a few things apart, but there's always something going on. And one of the big, I guess, things that this podcast, or one of the things that I'm most proud of with this podcast, is basically we're 100 and whatever this is, 139 episodes
like
strong, where we've done this week after week after week for 139 weeks. Now, little pull back the curtain, there are a handful of episodes that are pre-taped and things like that, but very few. Like, generally speaking, we get together every week and do the show.
For the most part.
Yeah. The only time that we pre-tape, or that there's usually a little bit of a queue, where we're working through 2 or 3 episodes, is typically if we have travel ahead and we know we're not going to be able to do the show, or, if it's just somehow easier to not do the show because we're going to be out of town or something like that. Then we may pre-record, or you'll see an occasional best of, but and this is just coming from memory, but I think if you go back and look at our first year broadcasting, I think there were maybe 3 or 4 best ofs or greatest hits kinds of shows that we put together. I think there was only 1 or 2 last year.
Yeah. And
that's in large part because we were together every week. We made a big point of trying to get together and do this show and stay consistent with it. So I think for me, one of our sort of personal milestones or things that I want to be most proud of is just that consistency. We have a consistency in brand, we have a consistency in show, and we're, live and direct, ready for you just about every Thursday. So anyway, that will be where we pat ourselves on the back.
Woohoo! One pat.
Woo. So, at the first of the year, like so many people do.
Well, it's not even just the first of the year. It's a new decade.
Yeah.
Which is
it's
great
true.
to me, because last decade for me really sucked ass. And
so it's time to grow and
it's time to grow and move on. And I'm excited for what's in store for us.
Yeah. So the list that I want to go through with you guys, we're trying to be, sort of fully authentic and transparent and open. And, there are a lot of people who come to us for podcasting advice and how-tos and stuff. Cause now, at this point we've been doing it long enough. We've got a pretty good handle on it. Doesn't hurt that Mike has expertise in audio engineering, so he can answer a lot of technical questions. But we're going to kind of just go through this list, and this is mine and Mike's sort of personal list. These are the things that we want to work on. And, so it's maybe a little behind the scenes, like stuff that you don't see, but we think it's fair to share these things. And ultimately we want to hold ourselves accountable, be held accountable by the listeners. If we're not living up to any of these things, shoot us a note, let us know. And yeah, so that's kind of where we're starting, or that's kind of the preamble to this thing. I see that we're only 8 minutes in, so I can tell you this probably won't go full hour because,
It's all right.
I could tell that you would already be bored stupid with it.
Yeah.
But for a little bit of our own gratification, we'll do it this way, and then maybe if I don't know, maybe we can add something to the show or something.
Sure.
I don't know. We'll figure it out. So anyway, so what I've got here in front of me is a list of that says eggs, big ideas. These are basically just sort of the few things that we want to work on this year. And Mike and I can sort of elaborate on these. I wrote down this list without really consulting Mike. I've read it to him.
but we've talked
but
about
we've
it.
talked about it. And so, but if there are other things, Mike, that you want to add or whatever, just go nuts.
Sure.
So the first thing on the list, and this had more to do with me probably than anything, but it was this, the first item is be more prepared. So one of the things that we try to do, and we sort of have built processes for and everything, is when we have a guest coming on the show, we send them in advance some documentation, guest releases, and we request press photos and things for the album artwork. We have a questionnaire that people can fill out to give us a little background information and things like that. And then typically we go doing some research. So that aspect of being prepared, I think we actually have a pretty decent handle on. Like we do a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, we normally do. So we were really good about this for the first 7 or 8 months that we had guests on. And we would write up show notes, have questions in advance and this and that. And with everything going on, I think we kind of let that kind of go.
Yeah,
to an
we
extent.
definitely became less diligent about it. I
Yeah.
mean, now if we don't know a person, because we do have a number of guests that come to us through different agencies and things like that where we don't know them in advance. And it does require a little bit of research. Like we have to go do some digging and find these people. And typically that will sort of bear some questions. But a lot of times, in the past, we would do this research. We'd sit down and write down questions. And we've tried different versions, Mike and I doing it or having my assistant help us or having a show producer help us and, different things. We've tried a number of different modalities for this. And so generally, I think that we're still pretty prepared most of the time. But the purpose behind this goal is basically to just kind of take that to another level, whatever that means.
Well,
and I think typically it means just not coming so off the cuff sometimes.
Yeah. And I agree. I think, I used to watch other podcasts and find other content that the guest had been on. And I really kind of have let that go. And it's my own doing just because my hectic schedule and the craziness of my life.
Yeah, some of it's a function of time. I mean, there are no doubt people in our audience who have tried to create their own podcasts. We see a lot of shows that come and go, within a matter of a couple episodes. And a big part of that,
pod fade.
Yeah, and a big part of that is just it's time consuming. It's a lot of work.
I would have never when I emailed you at 2:00 in the morning 3 years ago saying, "Hey, we really need to do this." I didn't imagine this kind of time commitment.
And we're blessed too, because we won't get into it right now, but we've relocated the studio, so we're not in our old studio anymore. And but up to that point, all we had to do was show up and press record, more or less. We were set up, ready to go. We have a unique advantage over a lot of people. And even now, the way that we're doing, we're doing this show in a very old school, super cushy manner, sitting on sofas in my basement. And, but we're super blessed because of Mike's technology, Mike's skills, Mike's everything. He can throw this show together or throw the technical aspect of the show together pretty quickly.
I think it really just comes down to the history of doing DJ gigs and having mobile setups and everything for the last 20 years.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just,
and that's the thing, but your average podcaster or your average person who's trying to get going wouldn't have any of that.
Yeah, that's very true.
And so, whether they've bought their little Zoom recorder and their Blue Yeti mic or whatever it is they're doing, the way that we're set up, we're able to be very nimble, very mobile, and do it very quickly. And so we have some advantages that allow us to be a little more off the cuff or whatever, because we could just show up and do the show.
Yeah. And
so, but unfortunately that also, at least in my case, has made it easy for me to just show up and do the show. and while I think that over the years, I noticed earlier this year, I'm not sure if I said anything on the podcast about it or if I've just mentioned it to Mike, but there was a couple episode period right around the time of the Carrie Murphy show where I felt a physical change in the way that we were having conversations. All of a sudden we seemed much more conversational. The way that we were talking, our questions were more on point. I felt a visceral change in that we became better interviewers at that moment for whatever reason. For some reason, it clicked in my head that I felt like we were suddenly better or had evolved to a point or have turned a corner on something.
Well, it's just like that, the theory of 1,000 hours of
10,000 hours.
10,000 hours. You can master anything. Well, we've got probably, I don't know.
At least have 138 hours.
Yeah.
But but to your point, yeah, I mean, it's that, right? It's reps, it's practice, and over that time, we had become better. And so I think that change, that feeling better, and I think that this is kind of a natural thing that people experience, is when you start to feel a level of competence at something where you feel like you can kind of just roll in and do it, then you kind of have that knack of rolling in and doing it. And I know that, like, for me, I was guilty of doing that a few times, where I would show up and it was literally just like the first, the hour up to the show is all the prep I would do.
Yeah.
And I can notice a difference going back and hearing those episodes. I can hear the difference between those episodes and the ones we spent a lot of time prepping for.
100%.
Yeah, you can just tell, and so it's. I
remember specifically like the Frank Cottle episode.
Mm-hmm.
That one in particular, I probably spent 6 hours prepping for that show just because I knew the status and caliber of the guy. Mm-hmm. And so I felt almost intimidated going into the interview with him because I didn't want to come across as, an uneducated idiot interviewing this business dude who has been in the industry for so long.
Yeah.
So.
And you can tell, right? If you go back and listen to that episode, and if I recall, he was an Eggie Award winner.
He sure was.
You can go back and listen to that show, and it was a pretty good one. And so I think what the point I'm making is that your extra work paid off, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the things, back to this idea of being more prepared. Those are sort of all the things that I'm talking about for this year is trying to spend a little extra time, put a little more due diligence, do these things. And you can always tell, I mean, when we've got great stories or great background on the people who are coming on our show, our conversations are like another level with them. Like, I mean, we have a lot of guests that you wouldn't traditionally call, I mean, they're not mainstream names or famous people or things like that. Well, God, we have great conversations with them.
So that's kind of why I love this show, is because we do have the Christos and the people who are the mainstream names, but we also have the no names, but still have a great story, and their story's just as important as the Christos and the Frank Cottles.
In some cases they're more important.
Yeah, because they're literally living what we're trying to help people with.
Well, and that's the thing. I think over the years we've sort of identified that much of our audience are sort of people that are on the grow. I mean, it's not the most, super experienced CEOs and things that are listening to our show. It's people who are trying to develop businesses or who are up and coming. And so to hear all these different perspectives, not just from those who have made it, but from those who are working on it, I think is really important. And it's good that those people have a voice. So, and shout outs to all the agencies and things who've been sending us guests, because we've been having some excellent people on the show lately. And
it's actually like, I remember when the first agency reached out to us, and it was kind of like a pat on the back, just the fact that they acknowledged us as a source to send their clientele to.
Yeah, it's true. And God, now we're working with, I mean, that particular person that you're talking about has moved agencies and still works with us. She's jumped to a new place and still using us.
I think there's like 4 or 5 that are sending us.
And
people
easily
these
now
days.
we've got 3, 4, maybe 5 of them that are reaching out from different points and different places with different guests, with different perspectives. And it's been very fruitful. So we're having the opportunity to meet some really cool people who we may not otherwise have access to.
Yeah.
So anyway, next thing on the list is always launch on time. This is a very personal one, because there have been a couple weeks in recent history for people who pay any kind of attention to the show where the show launched either really late on Thursday or early Friday morning. You'll never find them now, because I've gone back and changed all the dates.
Yeah, he's good at masking.
And so I go back and cover up my dirt. But there were a few episodes where just, I spaced it, or I was busy doing my own thing.
It was holidays, man.
Yeah, I just wasn't properly focused, though, and I didn't take care of business. And so there were a couple episodes that I missed. So that one, short and sweet, but just always launch on time. Make sure that we're ready. Right now, the show comes out every Thursday. The goal is 9 a.m. Thursday morning, whenever possible. Sometimes we record the shows on Wednesdays, so sometimes we have to launch a little later on Thursday, but typically 9 a.m. Thursday is sort of my goal. And then, we have entertained the idea and had thoughts about, a second show per week and things like that. So if that happens, the schedule might change, but that's where we are for now.
Well, I don't know if you want to talk about it right now, but aren't you in the process of kind of starting another one altogether?
Yeah, I can talk about it a little bit. I feel weird talking about it because it feels like I'm cheating on you. But
Dick.
but for anybody who follows me or follows my career at all, in addition to sort of my normal advertising marketing company, R2, I've spent a lot of time over the last year and a half, last year, I guess, mostly, doing a lot of writing and publishing and stuff in and around the world of relationship development, and more recently in the world of remote work and things like that. And, it's just sort of been a natural evolution of the things that I've been working on, but I'm finding that I quite enjoy working on this stuff. And
you're also niching down into something that's kind of its own unique thing.
Yeah,
the
and
remote work is specific.
Yeah, it's very specific, but it's something I've been doing for a long time. I mean, from when I was 16, 17, working out of the back of the tour bus to nowadays, working from wherever, right now from my basement. It's been something I've been doing for a long time. And so, and I think now more than ever, remote work is becoming a big part of business, especially for a lot of tech startups and people working in programming and creative services. Remote work and freelance work and stuff is very common. I anticipate, working from home relationships and things like that will probably continue to grow in mainstream corporate world too. But it's very near and dear to the stuff I work on. I've got 20 years of expertise in the field. And, and I mean, as I've been doing writing and stuff in this relationship space, I mean, I talk about it a lot on the show. Anytime we have a guest on that sort of dips into that topic, what was his name? The guy that was on a few weeks ago, Green was his last name. Dang it, I'm spacing out. But anyway, but he had written a book and actually does a lot of speaking on relationship building and things. And so this is what I've been spending a lot of time on. And so one of the things I want to launch here on the side, I've launched a little organization called Team Made Apart. And basically what Team Made Apart is a platform for remote workers. The mission statement is with Team Made Apart, our goal is to teach people who work remotely and those who hire them how to work better together. So we're trying to make the world a better place for remote workers and for the people who hire them. So
Mark E. Green.
Oh yeah, Mark E. Green. That's right, Mark Green. I was going to call him Tim, but so I'm glad you went back and looked it up. Yep. But anyway, yeah, Mark Green has a great book out on this stuff, and he talks a lot about relationships. And so when you listen to those episodes, you'll hear me get off on this relationship tangent, and we'll start talking about it. And that's wise because I've been spending a lot of time doing that. And so,
that's another thing that I think is cool is because we'll have a guest on like Mark that kind of hones in on something you've been working on, and it kind of clarifies stuff for you. And we're doing this podcast to help people, but more than anything, it's helping us.
Oh, for sure.
And it's enlightening us in the same time, and it's great.
Yeah, the intangible effects of this show have been massive for me. I mean, just the introductions to people who can now help me as I'm working through different things, all this stuff. And if nothing else, just being able to use this as a channel to open a conversation with somebody that we wouldn't otherwise have access to.
Sure.
It's been really, really valuable for that. But so anyway, to Mike's thing, basically with this Teammate Apart idea, we're going to launch the Teammate Apart podcast. Or something. Maybe it's I don't know for sure what it's going to be called yet, but something in and around the name Team Made Apart. And basically, we're going to have different experts from different aspects of remote work coming on. So we'll have people who hire remote workers, people who help remote workers find work, people who have worked as remote workers. I've got an expert that's going to come on that spends a lot of time working with people in third world countries and places like that don't have access to work in their home country, and they're using remote work to find work. And so so I've got this, bevy of resources that I'm going to be reaching out to. I think the format of that particular show, I think it'll be sort of like this, like an hour-long interview kind of thing. But instead of being a weekly show or daily show or whatever, it's just going to be a season. So we're going to drop it in sort of the season format. So we'll pre-tape 12 episodes or something, drop it over a 12-week period, but we'll have taped it all in advance. We'll drop it like a season.
Nice.
And so that way it's a little less of a time suck, and it doesn't interfere
you kind
with
of
this
knock
show.
it out of the way.
Yeah,
and get it done.
Yeah, so I'll schedule these interviews sort of back to back to back to back, and if it's useful to anybody, I mean, I can document this process a little bit as I go through it. And so the idea is basically we'll do these shows and then drop them, as a series, and you can sort of binge listen or whatever, and should be cool.
While I like that idea, I follow the Revisionist History podcast by Malcolm Gladwell, and he does it kind of like that. But it really sucks when you want a new episode and you got like a 6-month period where it's like, oh man.
Well, it's we're akin to Stranger Things, as popular, but we're gonna drop a season, and then you're gonna have to wait in great anticipation until the next season. And depending on how it goes, I have met in the last month and a half so many people I could talk to. I could do a weekly show, but it really is more to do with just the time. It takes a lot of time to produce these shows and all that stuff. And the model I'm kind of following is, Eggs alumni, Ian Paget. He does it that way. Where I think he does 10 episodes in his seasons. It's logogeek.uk, Logo Geek Podcast, I think is what it's called. And he does this, 10 episode thing where he goes out, he does these interviews, he edits them, he does a really good job with them, and then he drops those 10, and then he's done for a year.
Yeah, I kind of want to. I've thought about doing one on my own, just as I'm in Seattle this weekend. I was in Vegas a month or two ago. I meet a lot of people, and I'm on the road all the time, and I think it would be good content, but I can't think of the purpose. I can't think of other than telling cool stories, what would the purpose be?
Well, and maybe that's the purpose, right? Just sort of share stories to that very niche audience of people. Because that's the thing. Like I could bring any of these guests I'm going to have on the Team Made Apart thing. I could easily have just had on Eggs.
Yeah, jerk.
They're and some of them actually we may do both.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple who are really good. This guy Taylor Cashton that I'm going to have on. I met him out at Creative South last year. He is going to do that show, but I've also asked him if he would do Eggs and stuff, because I want to talk very specifically and niche down to just remote work on this remote podcast. And I think it would get kind of boring on this show if I was bombarding people with remote work every week. But I think for this guy, Taylor, for example, he has a great presentation on stress in the marketplace and stress at work and how to deal with stress and everything. And he's a great speaker, great guy, really cool dude. So I think he'll be a great one that will cross over.
Cool.
And there may be a few of those because a lot of these people that I'm meeting with are higher level CEOs of companies, things like that I think would be really great for this audience as well. I just don't want to bombard this audience with remote work stories.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, so that's why I decided to try and go with
it's
the
always
second show.
It's always funny to me when I listen to Joe Rogan or something, and you can tell what he's studying because he'll mention it 6 shows in a row.
Yeah, all of a sudden, every guest has to do with the book he's reading.
Yeah, right now, I think he's on some Indian path or whatever because he's reading these books that are about the Indians in the early America kind of thing, and he brings it up every episode.
Funny. Well, though, but it's such a good learning tool. I do the same. So in a lot of my writing, I have this process where I get up, I read my book, and then I go and I write an article that has to do with what I just learned. And then, in my conversation for the next week, I'll be like, oh, hey, yeah, no, I heard about this thing or whatever. And I'll keep bringing that up. So, but for me, that really helps cement it in my memory.
That's 100%
and I'm sure
what
that's
it's good for.
What Joe's doing is, by regurging that or having that fresh memory of the thing he just read, and then he's able to communicate it or work through those thoughts or ideas with somebody that's on his show. He's able to make a better, or retain that information.
Yeah, it kind of just cements that knowledge in place.
Well, and that's for me. That's a steady struggle, right? I'm not the best reader of all time, and so I don't retain very well. So even if I can force myself to sit down and read a book, I often won't remember what I read from day to day. I was actually kind of embarrassed when I was out in California for that designer con. I went out and I hung out with Chris Do for an afternoon. I was talking to him and I was telling him, oh yeah, I'm doing all this reading and I'm writing on all these things. He's like, oh yeah, what are you reading?
He's like,
I don't know. It's that one with the cover, it's but I can't even remember the name of the book I'm reading, let alone, the book.
Have you jumped into that Recall Masterclass that I sent you?
No, I haven't. I need to, because I think I could benefit from it.
Jim Quick does a Recall Masterclass, and I highly recommend anyone listening right now to go and take the class. It's not cheap. It's like $300, but he really goes in depth on how our memory works and how recalling stuff and being able to store that information to begin with, and then be able to recall it out of your storage is it's remarkable. The techniques that he teaches, like with names, how to remember names, and how to be able to, when you meet the person, remember their name and call them by name. And it's definitely beneficial. And I've seen results in me personally, just because like I'll come into a venue and I'll have 10 security guards, 4 bartenders, the person in charge. I'll have 20 people's names I got to remember. And I used to just not deal with it because I knew I couldn't remember them, and why bother? I'm only there once a month. But now I can use these techniques and actually, oh, okay, that guy's name's Chris. That guy's name's Greg. This guy's, and
I'm sure
sticks.
being able to recall those names helps, tremendously. If you need
Oh, it
something
does.
or whatever,
Yeah.
just like, hey, Chris, I remember you from last time, blah, blah, blah,
It actually kind of I've noticed it catches them off guard, and they're like, oh, this guy actually took the time.
Took a minute to remember me. Because
Yeah.
I'm sure for them too, they have DJs coming in all the time. They have
Yep.
people all the time. So like, why remember you over anyone else?
Exactly.
Well, and back to all this relationship stuff that I'm working on. This is a great technique or a great tool when you're developing a relationship is remembering people's names, for God's sake.
Yeah. Part of the course is your brain is designed to remember images. So if you can associate an image with the person's name, and make it outrageous, make it kind of just stand out. Like Greg had this big beard, and I overlaid big beard on Greg, and now it just comes. It's weird how it works, but a lot of the technique and things that he's teaching are just remarkable. It's Jim Kwik, spelled Kwik. And just Google that and you'll find his stuff. He also does a speed reading course that I'm going to sign up for next.
Oh, that's awesome. So. Yeah, I would love to be able to read faster too, because God, I read slow.
Right.
So that is, a long form version of the getting launched on time.
Right.
Let's see. What is that next one? God, why can I not read my writing?
Well,
That's the dog scratching at the door. This is the downside to doing it at home.
Right.
I guess.
well, it's I kind of like having the dogs in the room. It works for me.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Oh, okay. All that reading and this, or like trying to figure out my handwriting, and this is like not that meaningful. Basically, it's just build a queue. It's this idea of having a few shows queued up. This is one of the things I think would help my launching on time, is if I could pre-schedule shows. So if I always had next week's show ready to go, that I wasn't doing it the day of.
Starting actually with Ryan, we switched our entire procedure over to Notion, and it allows us to work on the same project at the same time, see deadlines.
Yeah, Notion is a piece of software or web platform that we can work in.
Yeah, and actually I reached out to their PR company, the people behind Notion, and we're trying to set up an appointment to get someone to come on and actually talk about their software.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We actually learned about that software from Christo, or actually Matthew Encina over at The Future. And that was it's a nice little find. We both use it in our companies, and now we've started using it for eggs too. So it's pretty cool. The next item on the list is better guests. So I will preface this by saying everybody that's been on the show has been more than good enough to be on our show.
Except for that one.
Well, yeah, but we don't talk about that one.
Yeah, that one we don't talk about.
But ultimately, all we're trying to say is we just want to continue leveling up. We want to continue growing. So the people who are coming on our show, we're vetting them. Yeah, see, this is the beauty of the dog.
Thanks,
the
Cookie.
Over here
we
shaking
appreciate
now.
the shaking sound.
And so, those are not high-tech sound effects that we're adding to the show. But the guests that we've had on to date, have been from a really broad swath of disciplines, from musicians to designers to artists to CEOs to, founders and all kinds of people. And, and no one is better than any other. They've all been great and amazing. And we couldn't be more grateful for the people willing to share their time and their information with us. And so when I say better guests, all we're meaning, or the criteria around this, is just that we want to continue leveling up the type of guests we have, maybe be a little more selective, things like that.
Well, instead of letting them all come to us, I kind of want to be more proactive and finding.
Yeah, maybe that's a better way of saying it, is being more proactive.
Because right now it's great having the agencies, they're sending them to us hand over fist. We got a back catalog for about 3 months now.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to kind of select a topic that we are truly interested in.
Well, and to your point about Joe Rogan, right, and him kind of going after the people that are what he's studying. Like, I mean, I'm reading this book right now by James Clear, I think is his name. And, like, it would be cool after I finish that book to hit up James Clear and say, hey, man, come on the show.
Yeah.
And see, I can't remember the name of the show, though. Something Habits, or the book. Something.
Atomic Habits?
Atomic Habits, yeah. So I'm reading that one right now. So, like, once I'm done with Atomic Habits, it might be interesting to hit up James Clear.
It's a great book.
Yeah,
it's
so
an
far I really
amazing
like
book, actually.
Yeah, unfortunately, most of the reading I had been doing prior to the holidays, I would just sit down and kind of work through a book over 2 or 3 days. This one has now been stretched out over weeks. And so I'm having a hard time recalling what I read at the beginning and stuff like that.
Are you taking notes as you're doing it?
I am now, yeah. That's kind of a new thing in the last 3 or 4 books I've read. I hadn't been doing that prior. So.
Dude, I have recently just started trying to do like recaps of audiobooks because I find that the knowledge is in there, but I don't like I'm driving 90% of the time when I'm listening to a book and being able to actually recall it and know the information. There's that next step of actually creating a book report, for example. I think that would help a lot just for me personally. And I also like the fact that I can put it in like Notion and be able to search for a topic.
Yeah.
And be able to find that.
Well, and what I've been doing sort of is as I go through a book, like I'm sort of highlighting quotable things, and like grabbing top level ideas or whatever out of them. And then I'm putting all those into a document. So I've got like this list of quotes. And then I'm sort of trying to build sort of a social media strategy and a writing strategy around this stuff too. So then I pull out their 10 topics. And then the idea is of those 10 top 10 topics, I will write articles on 3 to 5 of them or something. And then use that as a way to sort of help me retain all that stuff.
Yeah,
and then
that's
I'll
a
write
great
social
approach.
media stuff around it and everything. It's pretty cool. That's another Chris Doeism. He was I was complaining because I couldn't recall the name of the book I was reading. And I was complaining that I had trouble retaining all that stuff. And so he kind of gave me this as sort of his method of doing it. And so far, the 2 books I've read in that style have been, it's been very effective. So I would like to continue doing that. So yeah. So I think, to sum up that point of better guests, I think Mike's right. I think it's actually not better. It's proactively looking for guests.
Yep.
Again, back to some of these ideas of being more prepared or whatever, sort of the laziness that comes along with having guests thrown to us instead of having to go actively get them, I think has led to a state where, at least for me personally, I'm not out trying to get them.
Well, because the first 6-7 months of us doing the show, we didn't have people feeding us guests. We had to go out and find them. And I think that's, by acknowledging that we're interested in them, it kind of makes it more, Well, and I think we could conduct better interviews, be more prepared, all these things, if, we were reaching out to the names of these authors or the names of the people who run these companies or the, whatever. We got a invite or a request to have a guy on our show. There's Cookie coming to say hi. She's a little excited and she has no respect for the on-air light. Yeah, how dare she?
So we had a guy, and I don't remember his name, so I won't say his name, but he's the chief marketing officer of a company called Printful, for example. And so Printful is the company that I used to use to manufacture all of Restless's clothing by random coincidence. So when I had the Restless clothing company up and running, that was the company I was using to produce all the material, all the clothing. And so I'm looking forward to having him on the show to talk about his company because I use his company. So same thing with some of these other people we'd like to reach out to is, if we've already got a relationship with them, whether or not we've read a book or we use their tool or whatever, I think that could lead to a more powerful, higher powered conversation, that might dig a little deeper than your run-of-the-mill conversation.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
So anyway, so that sort of sums up the best guess. So the next step is, or the next item, and we actually are going longer than I thought we would. So the next one is improve self-promotion. One of the things that Mike and I do, and we keep leaning back on being busy and everything, but it's probably not the best excuse because everyone's busy.
No, I'm always busy. That's his.
Well, I'm not saying you're not busy. I'm saying that the excuse doesn't matter.
I know.
It is because I'm the same though.
Yeah.
Is that we don't do a lot of promotion of this show. which is unfortunate because we do put a lot of work into it and we do a good job with the show. The production quality is good. The programming's good. The interviews are good. Like everything is good, but then we don't spend a lot of time talking about it.
Yeah.
We're not up on the mountaintop screaming and yelling. We're not doing a lot of the heavy lifting to try and drive traffic. And really it's to our own detriment. Like,
well, the thing for me is like, so you do the design work, I do the audio work. And for me, it's like I'll upload the file and have it there ready to go. And I kind of almost wash
job
my
done.
hands up,
Checked.
check. And then
Yeah.
there's like 4 more steps I need to do.
Well, and for me, right, once I write the write up for the podcast and publish it, like, or schedule the publishing, whatever, like same thing for me. Okay, I've done my aspect.
yeah. And
Done.
then you go back and you forget that we even have an Instagram for eggs. And,
Yeah.
and it's,
Well, and,
Yeah.
and so that's the thing. I think we want to be a little more diligent about our
do we even have a
self-promotion.
Twitter for eggs?
Yeah. We have one. We just don't use it.
All right.
And at best, we'll publish on Instagram and synchronize to everything else.
Well, I mean,
You
that's
know.
my default for the DJing too. So
it's just it's one of those things. I think it's important that we level up on that. I mean, honestly, we could probably be doing better in terms of numbers and everything else if we were more active on those platforms and engaging more with the audience. You know, we really want people to reach out to us, but the only way we really encourage it is by email or whatever. And you know, we could probably go right to people a little better if we were active in social media.
Well, I mean, we hit up Authority Zero last week, and they were totally willing to come on, but we contacted them through Facebook.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think
and they're probably still going to come on, so it might be in the queue.
yeah, but like I think what it is too, at least for me, and I think Mike has sort of these similar characteristics, is just that it feels weird to go out and promote us too, like
Yeah,
to go out.
I don't
and
like it
do
at
this
all.
thing and like bet, you know, it's not really begging, but asking people to come listen to the show or whatever feels odd to me.
So you guys should be promoting us.
Yeah, right?
That's really what it
Yeah, I
comes
mean,
down
if you
to.
guys
Is
would
you
do
guys are slacking, and I don't like it.
Yeah, think of all the anxiety you would save us if
Right.
you guys would just promote the show on our behalf. You know, I mean, it's that whole thing, right? I mean, it's even in my own writing, even in my own everything. Like it kind of takes a force of nature to make me promote it,
Right.
And you know, I have no problem
And
doing
we
the work
worked.
or any of that.
We worked
stuff,
for
but-
5 years as concert promoters, so I mean, it's like
Yeah, it's such a weird thing, but I've never had any trouble promoting other people's things. But when
Right.
it's come to my stuff, I've never been very good about it.
Well, it's kind of almost like what's the term? When you're promoting someone else, you feel like it's
Well, I think it's akin to that imposter syndrome.
yeah.
kind of
That's
thing.
that's
It's-
what the term I was thinking.
We've got this show, we've got this thing, we've been doing it for a long time. We produce it every week. We're doing all the work. You know, now we just have to tell people we did the work.
Yeah.
like it shouldn't be that hard, but for some reason it's been really hard to craft it into our days. And so that's a sort of a goal for 2020 is to be a little better about that.
Sure.
Finally, and maybe one of the more important things is seeking sponsorship. So to date, for these
We
last
want
3 years,
your money.
yeah, for these last 2.5 years, Mike and I have financed this thing. We've had a few little sponsors that have come on sort of in name only or in what do they call those, referrals and things like that. And you know, and it's been nice to add a little credibility. Like we had Audible on the show for a long time. And it was nice that we were able to add them, you know, because I felt like it added a little credibility to the show. But, you know, those referral things, like
The
it's-
return's not there.
well, it's a numbers game,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if you have 10 million downloads, you know, even if 1% of your crowd goes and does it, you can make money on these referrals. But for audiences like ours, it doesn't work. And so we would like to find a partner, you know, maybe more than one, but at least one that we could sort of partner with that could help sort of steer the ship, you know, and maybe we could do some, you know, promoted work for them. I was talking to a guy at Creative South last year who has a pretty well-known podcast. And basically, you know, one episode a month he does, you know, that sort of centers around his sponsor's product, for example.
Oh, that's cool.
And, you know, and it's still their show. It's still all their stuff, but they talk to other people who use this software or whatever it is. And
So we need that nonstick frying pan. That's,
yeah.
That's our sponsor.
if we could get
this
somebody
year.
to do cooking knives, I need cooking knives.
There you go.
But, you know, and we're,
Well, I
eggs,
was- I was just thinking
let's see if we
that,
can
like,
get
the
like, we need Sur La Table.
Yeah.
That's what we need. If we could get sponsored by like a cooking company.
There we go.
Somebody that could hook us up with your copper clad pan and who can hook us up with like Ginsu knives or whatever, you know.
I was just thinking, leaning towards the egg side of things. You know, the copper pan, nonstick,
just nonstick.
fried
Yeah,
eggs.
that's
You're
perfect.
You're good to go.
Yeah, it's the best. So speaking of that, our new sponsor.
Yeah.
No. But
Or
but
sriracha. Get
Yeah.
like the
Ooh, sriracha
the hot
would be
sauce
nice,
that you put on your
the only
eggs.
the only problem is God, I can't use sriracha on every meal. I love sriracha, but I couldn't go so nuts with sriracha.
I could.
But if we got Sur La Table,
Then we're going.
then we're golden, because we could not only get our pans for frying the eggs, but we could also get all kinds of other implements. And I want
Do you know what's weird to me? Like I get my stickers through this website called Sticker Mule. And I mean, they're great. Their quality of their stickers that they put out are awesome. Their pricing's great. I highly recommend them if you guys want to go get stickers. But they also dabble in the hot sauce business. How does that work? I mean, it's like they sell stickers and they have
And
this hot sauce on their website called the Mule Sauce.
What a weird thing.
And I mean, it works. I guess.
Why not, right?
Yeah.
Well, and that's one of the things too. I mean, we do want to start doing some merch here for eggs. So, I mean, maybe we need to partner with a local eggery, and we'll start selling eggs. I don't know what the solution is, but anyway. So
Speaking of local eggeries, I just thought in my head, I'm like, oh, we should go to like a free range chicken place. And I was listening to Joe Rogan yesterday or 2 days ago, and some farmer or whatever had to file a lawsuit against like the state of Alaska or something because of all the bald eagles that are stealing his free range chickens.
Oh, nice.
They're literally camped out over his thing, and he's losing like millions of dollars in chickens
awesome.
every year because of bald eagles.
and he can't shoot them.
Yeah, he can't do anything.
So, well, but I mean, to that end, I mean, speaking of sponsors and chickens, I mean, I think Joe Rogan has chickens. So if he'd like to sponsor our show,
hey, Joe,
maybe help us out. We're fans. We're, true believers in the Rogan universe. So, feel free.
Yeah.
Help us out. Either hook us up with chickens or just hook us up with some love. So anyway, that's the list for this year. I think, most of it are incremental improvements on where we are today. So I don't think that any of them should be like out of reach, which is great. I think we will rely more on our fans for some of these things. Like we'll need some support. We'll need some love.
Yeah, please.
But also
share.
lean on us, man. If we're not doing the job we're supposed to be doing, or if there's things about the show that
if there's a
like or don't
topic you would like us to cover, I'm down to do research and learn stuff so I can,
Well, and topics or guests, if there's somebody you'd like to see on the show, any of that kind of stuff. I mean, God, just reach out to us and let us know.
Yeah.
Maybe not through Twitter today, but maybe by next month we could be into Twitter. But
you know what's sad? Like 2 months ago, I posted on Twitter for the first time in like a year and a half. And I'm like, I promise I'm going to be better at this. Dude, and that was the last post I made 2 months ago.
Across all the things I've got going on, Team Made Apart and Eggs and Restless and R2 and blah, 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 everything. Like I've seriously got probably 25 Twitter feeds.
Right.
But I don't use any of them. I can't keep up on anything. And so
we need to find a teenager that said,
that's what we need. We need somebody that can just sit around and do social because they have nothing else to do.
Yep.
So anyway, but yeah, so that's our list. I think, I'm hoping by saying some of these things out loud, they'll sort of help us grow the show this year. I mean, obviously your continued growth, sharing, support, telling your mom and telling your friends, everybody about us is, obviously how we've grown to date. And we're super grateful for all that and the love that we have received. We look forward to doing, another year of great shows for you guys. We've got some exciting guests already queued up. But I think, we'll be actively pursuing some bigger names and more well-known people that I think you're going to enjoy. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So that's State of the Union, I think.
So I feel like we should do like a pomp and circumstance theme music for the State of the Union.
Yeah, I would have said in the past, I would have said play the presidential theme song, but I don't know. Right now it's got a little stink.
There's got to be some.
So let's find something else. There's got to be, I don't know, plays the Canadian national anthem or something.
There you go.
So I don't know. Or remix it. You could do like a remix of the American national anthem and the Canadian one and like Mexico or whatever and do like a North American hybrid something. I don't know. Set it to ranchero music or something.
There you go.
I don't know. We'll get it all going. Whatever it is. But yeah, something with horns would be nice. So anyway, but yeah, so that's it. That's this week's show. Do follow us on social media. Do not expect a lot from us, but know that more will be coming. If you do have any interest in helping out and becoming our teenager, we do need some support. So, I mean, if anybody's interested in being involved with the show in one capacity or another, let us know. We're happy to take on interns and things like that. Also, if you're interested in a show, one of the things I didn't really get into is we plan to do some work in educational products this year. We want to share some of the things we've learned in our 3 years podcasting to pass on some of that knowledge. So anticipate some things like that. So there's a lot of exciting things coming from the Eggs crew. And if you want to get in early before we're just too famous to talk to,
because that's going to happen.
Now's the time.
Totally.
So jump in. So I guess then check us out, eggscast.com. You can shoot us an email there and get involved with the show that way. Check us out on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, all the places where great podcasts are found. You can check out Mikey over at djontic.com. Follow me at ryanrogar.com. That's ROGHAAR.com. And that's it.
Yeah.
I think. First time in like 6 months I've done plugs.
There you go. See,
go.
we're on the right foot to
Moving on the good foot.
Yeah.
So cool. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening, tuning in to our little State of the Union address, even if it is for personal accountability. I am stoked you stuck with us. And we'll see you guys next week.
Yep. Later.